I have no problem talking to another business owner and saying, hey, what are you doing? This is what I'm doing. Is it working for you? We need to stop trying to be against each other and start to support one another, because that's the only way we're going to make it and keep things sustainable and also make a healthy living where we're not like burning ourselves out.
Welcome to the Venue RX. On this show, we document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
What's up, everyone? Today, we have a very special guest. She is a previous guest on the Venue Owner series and one of our first episodes that we filmed back in season 1, and so excited to welcome Helen with Brookledge back to the Venue RX. Thank you so much for being here today, Helen.
I'm so excited to be back. It's like hanging out with old friends. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had to cut you off literally seconds ago when we weren't recording because you were just like launching into all of the things, the incredible progress that you've made since you've been on the show. And wow, like, my goodness, I can't wait to get into all of this and have you share some of the lessons that you've learned and kind of the things that you're doing. So could you, I mean, gosh, I don't even know where to start. Could you go back and give us kind of where you were? I think you were at like 5 to 8-ish weddings. I remember there was a bride, Katie, who was just going to get married. She was kind of the inspiration for getting into it. It was a summer camp, right? So could you, for anyone who hasn't gone back and listened to that, and that's season 1, I think it's episode 16, 17, somewhere around there. Go back and listen to that if you haven't already to get some context on Helen. But for anyone who doesn't want that, could you just give us a Spark Notes version and then give us from where you were to where you are today?
Yes. So Brookledge was a summer camp for girls. It was located in upstate New York. So we're about 3 hours north of New York City. And it had cabins and a very primitive pavilion. And so my thought was to create a space for couples that loved nature and wanted a wedding weekend where they wanted to check in on a Friday, have their wedding Saturday, leave on Sunday. The first year that we were here basically was just focusing on improving the ground. So that was the infrastructure of the property, adding cabins, making a ceremony location, a reception space. And then since then, we've just been fine-tuning it. So our first set of weddings was in 2022. 2023 was really our first wedding year. So I would say 2022 was more of like a trial and error year to kind of see where we needed to make improvements and changes and what was good, what wasn't. So 2023, we did very well. We had quite a few weddings. We had about 20 events, 28, I think, total, which was big for us. We were really excited about that. And then we also rent the cabins aside from weddings. So if there isn't a wedding day or anything going on, people can rent the cabins. And so we found that from May to October, we worked every single day. Yeah.
That totally sounds like the cost of success. So yeah. Where are you at today? I'm sure booking into, you've got 2024 bookings, 2025. Where are you at today?
So 2024, I still have a few dates available this year, but for 2025, I have one date left. So I have October 18th, and that is it. So we definitely filled up quick. People discovered us. We became the 2024 best wedding venue of Saratoga area. So we were beyond thrilled with that. And I think the reason that people loved this space was we are different. I was afraid a lot of times I would look at wedding venues and I'd say, oh my gosh, we're not like that. We don't have the crystal chandeliers. We don't have the fancy ballroom. And it turns out there's a whole group of people that were looking for a place like what we have it's like nature inspired. They can get married under the trees. They want to be outdoors. They want to have guests, spend time at the pond, the nature trail, and have a whole weekend. So I was so worried about us being different that, that whole comparison game. And in the wedding world, I mean, anytime you open up social media, that's all you see is all this like glitz, glamour, all this fancy stuff. And there's a whole market for people that love what we're doing. And I think that's why people recognized us and were happy to vote for us, and they love our team and what we do. Like, we are passionate about weddings. We love our couples. They become family, and a lot of them come back and stay in the cabins for special family things. So it's amazing, but I definitely think I learned to not compare us to other venues. We are not like, I mean, we say it, we are not fancy, like China chandeliers. Someone coined us as fancy flannel, that we're comfortable and presentable.
Flannel, that's a thing. I love that. I love it. Yeah. And hey, I mean, just being a guy who rides motorcycles, you can spend like $120 on a good fancy flannel. So
you can, yes.
Yeah, I'll second that motion. I might use that at some point. Okay, Helen, I want to dive deeper into something you said there, because I think it's super powerful. You talked about how you'd kind of look and you'd see these other venues, and it was easy to play that comparison game. It sounds like you embraced something that you initially maybe were fearful that was going to keep people away. Is that correct?
Yes. I was worried that we wouldn't be pretty enough for weddings. Okay. And because you see all of these beautiful venues, and even like the venues that are mentioned on your podcast, they're all so different. And one of the things that when I was listening to your podcast and kind of taking in all the wedding stuff, there are different types of couples, and we need to find our ideal couple. And we laugh, like we talk at a team, our ideal couple has a black lab. They love to hike. They love to wear fancy flannel. So they're not looking for a place that is super fancy. They are looking for something comfortable that can be filled with their family. They can be outdoors. They're very low stress couples, which I love. I don't get the bridezillas. I get the couples that are like, it's raining, no big deal, Helen, we got it, we're fine. So I think pushing into what we're good at and not trying to change. If I started adding chandelier and gold leafed ceilings, it wouldn't have matched us. We're rough cut lumber. We are trees. We're ponds. We're nature sounds. Like, that is what we are. And that's okay. It's okay to be that. And my couples love it for that reason.
Yeah, the positioning there is incredible. And I think for anyone listening to this right now, if you do have that feeling of like, I don't know if you said pretty enough, but if you're striving to be something that you're not, you're probably going to not do that very well.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think there are some people on social media that talk about this, but like just being genuine and just being yourself, and you as the owner, and then also you as the property. I can say from even personal experience, sometimes I struggle with that, because as we take on a property in our management portfolio, it's easy to say, oh, this is kind of like this other property that we manage. Yes. Let's try to run it like that, or let's try to position the marketing like that. And that, that's terrible. That's the slight edge that you need to be really successful, like you guys have experienced.
And I talk to my team about it all the time. Shout out to Sandra and Brooke. They're my right-hand girls. We hear from vendors all the time that give us, and it comes from a good place. And they're like, well, you should do this. Or instead of doing this pavilion, you should add this to a different spot of your property. And it comes from a great place. I talk to my team, and they're always like, but Helen, that's not who we are. And you're right. Like, that's not who we are, because it's really easy to feel like you need to add things to your space. And sometimes you don't need to add things, but you just need to fine tune them. And that's where we are right now. Is we've got a great space. Couples are loving it. Let's just fine tune it so it's easier for us to manage and easier for our couples to plan their day. And that's where we are right now.
How did you settle into that? Like, how did you, if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh gosh, I haven't found that positioning, or I haven't found what we are, like our identity. They're still trying to figure out their identity. How did you go about figuring that out?
So that's a great question. And I think what happened was, I love this space. I love the nature, and I enjoy being outdoors. So I basically created a space that I loved and couldn't find in this area. It happened organically, and I didn't try to force it. I also surrounded myself with people that had the same vision that I do. And then when my couples would come, I had no issues talking to my couples and saying, hey, we're a newer venue. And if there's something that you need or there's something that you wish this place had, please let us know. And if we heard that multiple times, one of the things we kept hearing was the groom suite that we had did not have a bathroom in it. It's a log cabin. They're very primitive buildings. And they kept saying, I wish we had a bigger space to hang out, and I wish it had a bathroom. So that's what we worked on. We took one of the other cabins and we've altered it. We heard it 3 times. If we hear something 3 times, then it gets put on the list of things to consider. So we kind of created like a plan, but we were upfront with our couples and we were like, hey, like we're a new business. If there's something that you wish we had, let us know. And they felt comfortable doing that with us. And they also realized like we might make a mistake, but they were okay with it because we heard them and we acknowledged that. And so I think that is where it helped us and kind of gave us like a direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Venue DNA and trying to like pull that out. Like, what is that? I love that you said you listened to your couples. You also just before that said that you had all these helpful suggestions from vendors that came from a good place, but your vendors are not your clients.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. Okay.
And there are things though that the vendors had shared that we needed, things that the caterers were like, hey, we really wish there was a wall here for some privacy. We heard it a couple of times. We're like, you know what, we can do that. And because if the vendors are also happy with our space and they want to work here, they're going to recommend us. And that was something too that we realized we needed to network more and we needed to get the name out in the community. And that was something that I think really helped us for the 2025 weddings.
Okay. These are just gems you're dropping. Talk to me about the networking a little bit. I have a couple of things that I want to, the networking, I'm curious, how do you...
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to show up to a room full of people and you have to sell your space. So one of the things that I did was I joined local chambers. I joined some that were right close to me and some a little farther out. I joined virtual. There's like virtual network groups that were free. So I joined those as well. And then there's a networking group called the Mingle series. I believe there are multiples of these, but it's designed for wedding vendors and encouraging wedding vendors to support one another. And I started attending those. I actually am going, you're going to laugh, but I'm going axe throwing tonight with some of the vendors that I met there so that we can brainstorm, have fun, and kind of talk about the wedding world and how we can support each other so that we're not butting heads, but helping one another. And so those are the things that I was looking to join. I also have been doing a lot with social media and connecting with people that way, not just looking at the reels, but actually like communicating with them and exchanging my information, welcoming them out here and kind of encouraging like other events to get the word out about the community. So that was the other thing I wanted to do is like offer the space up to the like local fire department and say, hey, like I have this weekend available. If you want to use it for your fireman's ball, we will do that. And so those types of things where people find out that we exist, that we're good people in the community, they will help spread the word for us as well.
That makes so much sense. Do you find that your couples are coming from the area that's maybe 20 minutes in kind of a concentric circle around your property, or is it destination?
We have a mix. So I'd say 30 to 40% are coming from New York City. Okay. They are looking for what they call the Adirondack kind of style wedding. For those of you who are familiar with the area, that's big trees, mountains, rivers, that kind of a thing. And we're getting a lot of them because they get to stay here and make it like a wedding weekend.
Yeah.
So we'd have a huge percentage of that. And then other than that, I'd say the rest are local, probably within an hour radius.
Okay.
I think because we have lodging on site, I think that allows our circle to be a little bit wider for that reason.
Totally.
Yeah.
Hey there, pardon the interruption. I wanted to share with you about WEVA. WEVA stands for Wedding and Event Venue Association, and it's a brand new association just for venue owners and operators that we launched last year. It's been growing quickly since then, and we would love to offer an invitation to you to be a part of it. WEVA is an association that is purpose-built for venue owners and operators to provide community, education, and networking opportunities just for our industry. We have a number of different resources, including networking, co-working events, local meetups, and all sorts of different things. We will be having a large yearly event as well. We would love to have you part of the community, so please consider joining. We do have a link in the description below, or we will be linking it wherever you're listening to this. So please click on the link, check it out, and we would love to see you inside of WEVA. Do you have lodging in the area, hotels or things like that, that if you didn't have lodging, like if you didn't have that component, do you feel like the results would be different?
Yes. I think the fact that we have lodging on site is a huge bonus for our couples. They love that they can stay there for the rehearsal. They can have rehearsal dinner there. They can stay with their bridal party. They can have their, close family stay there. So that's been a huge pull. But we are about 20 minutes from the nearest hotel. So we did find that not every couple wanted everyone to stay on site, or we may not offer enough. We right now offer about 30 spaces for the guests to stay. So what we did is we went around the local Airbnbs in the area. I had one of my staff members go and actually talk to the hosts. They looked at the Airbnbs to see if it was clean, if it kind of went with the same aesthetic. And then we offered that list to our couples as a preferred vendor. So the couples love that. Okay, Uncle Joe's coming from town. He's not going to stay here because I'm having my bridal party, but he can stay 2 miles down the road. So that's something that if you don't have lodging on site, I'd say, find all those local Airbnbs close by. They'll be thrilled to have, to be part of your list. And that's a great way to kind of make it a wedding weekend if you wanted to.
I'm going to use that Airbnb kind of segue into something else I'm curious about, which is, you mentioned right before we got on some venues in the area closing or going up for sale.
Yes.
And also zoning and stuff like that. I think this is something that we're seeing across the entire country.
Yes.
Municipalities, counties, starting to catch on in terms of things like noise ordinances, permitting, building stuff, all of that. What are you seeing? Kind of what have you learned over the last couple of years?
So I don't know about your area, but out here, barn weddings were a big deal for a long time. And so a lot of local farms thought, we'll just open up the barn and we'll welcome weddings. And they didn't go through the correct permitting process. So we're seeing that some of those are closing down. We're seeing that neighbors are complaining, like you said, of noise ordinances or the amount of traffic that's coming through their area. So we saw a wedding venue that had to deal with that. And so they closed down. And then we just saw some wedding venues that they built a whole place, but they never got building permits or any of those necessary things at the town. So I like that they're now starting to hold all wedding venues to the same standards, but it definitely makes me double check to make sure all of my ducks are in a row, that I have everything. And I'm super fortunate in that the town that I'm in, they welcomed us with open arms, and they've been absolutely amazing. Because we're a tiny rural town, they just really kind of supported us. We're the only wedding venue out here. So they were really thrilled to have us and have been supporting that. So I think we're in a different situation as opposed to somebody who's doing it in a bigger city that has a lot of competition. Their neighbors are close by. I don't have close neighbors. We're 60 acres and then the neighbor behind us is 70. So we follow the noise ordinances, but if people are listening to their music outside their cabin, no one's going to hear it. So we're fortunate in that sense. We don't have some of the headaches that other venues across the country have to deal with.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I think if a venue is listening to this, a venue owner is listening to this, and they are maybe in an area with competition, how do you think about competition? You don't have anyone who's maybe immediate competition in your area, but there are certainly other considerations that couples are having. What does competition look like for you being so rural?
Yeah, there is quite a few wedding venues, I'd say, within the hour radius. There's a lot. I think I heard a crazy number that in the last couple of years, 90 venues opened up in this area. a lot. So there is competition. The one thing I've noticed is, so I have a few other wedding venues where I reached out to the owners and we kind of talked and helped one another. The thing that we wanted to make sure, and I don't know how to say this without sounding terrible, but there are wedding venues that will open up and they'll say, hey, come rent this place for $1,000.
Yeah.
You know, and they're just offer like bare bones. They're not offering anything. And they're basically like undercutting the other venues. The problem is unless you are doing it properly, getting the insurance, doing all of the things that need to be done, I cannot offer this place for $1,000. I can't. So a lot of the wedding venues around us that are really looking to make this sustainable, a good business, be able to pay our staff properly, we've been kind of trying to stay along the same bracket and support one another. And I think that it's a disservice if we are not working as a wedding venue industry together. I think it's a disservice. And the Mingle series, like I was talking about earlier for the networking, you know, I have no problem talking to another business owner and saying, hey, what are you doing? This is what I'm doing. Is it working for you? We need to stop trying to be against each other and start to support one another, because that's the only way we're going to make it and keep things sustainable and also make a healthy living where we're not like burning ourselves out.
Yeah. We need to talk about Weeva 100%.
Yes.
That I think is kind of the vision for what Weeva can be a part of. Like if there was, and maybe it's benchmark data, but maybe it's an understanding of, hey, for this area, average pricing, give or take 15% higher or lower, is kind of the benchmark. And if a venue is going to come in the area, it's really important to kind of stay within that range. I understand people own the buildings outright. Maybe there's some kind of specific things that allow those venues to get away with lower pricing. Maybe it's like a museum that doesn't need to fill their dates or, you know, whatever the case may be. But yes. I 100% agree with you. We need that because as a community, the whole community hurts when there's that sort of action. So
yes. And because of Brookledge, we have the wedding venue side, and we have what's called short-term rentals, Airbnbs. The short-term rental community is tight. They are helping each other, making sure that people are staying in business and that they're doing, that they have high standards and that they're supporting one another and learning each other and sharing technology that they're using. I don't feel like the wedding world is quite there yet. I did feel coming into it as a new member that it felt a little like I had to prove myself first, that I was worthy to be in the space, as opposed to being like, hey, that's awesome. What is it you're doing? This is what I've figured out. Where like for you, the podcast, the Venue RX, that was a huge resource for me because you were doing that. Venues were sharing information. But as far as like locally, it took a little while for people to realize like, yeah, I'm a wedding venue. We do weddings. We know what we're doing. So we didn't get the welcome arms right away.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think some of that does come with a little bit of skepticism, like, oh no, a new venues in our area. How do we, are they there to stay? But again, yeah, thank you for saying that about the podcast. I really hope it is kind of that resource to get people to level 2 a little quicker, so that the conversation can develop a little bit more. Okay, so share a little bit more about other things that you've learned. You've been in business some time now. You're booked out practically for 2025, which is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What have you learned as you've been a venue owner over these couple of years?
So I've learned 3 valuable things. 1, I can't do it all. I can't. 2, let the baker bake the cake. So if somebody on my team can do a better job or a vendor can do it better than I can, I need to let that go. In the beginning, I tried to do all of the things. And you say this all the time on the Venue RX. Start small, start just the venue, and then add other pieces. Don't try to become... I thought I needed to be an all-inclusive to compete with the other venues. I didn't need to do that. Couples appreciate that they can bring in their own caterers and that type of a thing. So let the baker bake the cake. I don't need to be doing those types of things. I also learned that I need to write everything down. My team, if there's a problem, we just take care of it. And if the toilet breaks, we just fix it. We make that happen. But now that we've expanded and we're bringing new people on, we need to put everything in writing and have our systems down so that when someone new comes on, they're not overwhelmed by us, by my team, and that they can just do those things. So the systems and operations piece is where we were kind of like lacking in the beginning and trying to do too much right away. That was a big mistake. I should have taken your advice in the beginning. But we've since learned that, and I was afraid too of pricing. I'd say that I've learned a lot about pricing our wedding venue. This area, the average wedding in this area is $47,000. So that's, the weddings here are quite pricier than maybe some other area spaces in the area. And I think I was a little too low in the beginning. And I think even now I could go up for the 2026 weddings. We're going to go up a little bit more. But that was the other thing, too, I made a mistake on is my pricing. It's so hard, pricing.
It's ridiculously hard. So what impact do you feel like having too low pricing had?
The pricing being too low made it challenging for me to hire staff. I had to eat a lot of my profit. It also made it harder for me to make those renovations and changes that I wanted to do. So that was the other piece. I think if I had priced myself accordingly, I would have also, my guests, the couples that we get are, because I try not to price too high, that we change the type of guest couples that we get because it's very specific. So we know if I were to be pricing for a wedding weekend at $25,000, I wouldn't get the same couple as what we're doing now, which is between $12,000 and $15,000. So that's the part I have to be careful that I don't overprice, that I lose my niche couple, and that I'm not too low that I can't pay for my staff and the rising cost of insurance and things like that. So it's finding that wiggle room.
Yeah, that's really powerful. That the pricing is so important because, and I think a lot of people don't understand, consumers don't understand what goes into it. And it's almost like you charging the right pricing will literally give you the capability and the power to make the changes that the clients are requesting.
Yes.
So,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the things that they don't realize, like I have to host my first 2 weddings, cover the insurance for the year. So my first 2 weddings, I don't make a dime because they're covering the insurance for the property. So we talked about like the first 5 weddings covered the expenses of maintaining the property. It hasn't even touched the staff. So to maintain a space this large, 60 acres I have over a mile of roads in here. Everything costs a lot. So just like right now I just got a quote, Jonathan, I got a quote for lighting. Okay. Lighting to go from the front entrance to go around to the parking area. Without bringing power to it. This is just the lighting. It was $45,000 for lighting. So we're not going to do that, obviously. But that's what I mean. Everything costs so much. I would love to be able to do all that fancy lighting, but it's just not going to happen right now. So we're going to have to come up with some creative ways to do lighting. But yeah, it's just everything is really pricey. And anytime we do renovations, it's really expensive. And I know venues and people all over the United States are dealing with that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Renovations. Some of them are needed. Some of them are things that are like nice haves that you want to do because you've got feedback from the couples. We're seeing that all over. I wanted to talk more about staffing. And then I also, before we get into that, because I wanted to get into that a little bit more, but I'm curious, you mentioned before we got on, you had to say no to some opportunities that were exciting. Probably you said some podcast stuff. You said some different things. You had to say kind of no to that to stay focused on the weddings. Could you expand on that a little bit more and share the mindset behind that?
Yeah. So, because I'm basically in two worlds, wedding world and short-term rental world, we were part of a book called Hospitable Hosts. Jody Sterling is the mastermind behind that. That book it went number one. So it showcases different short-term rentals around the world. And we are one of the ones that represent the United States. Because of that, it led to opportunities where I would speak at conferences, be part of other projects, podcasts, different types of events and things like that. The problem is it would take me away from here. So for example, one of the opportunities was to go down to Texas and speak at a short-term rental conference there. That was 5 days away from Brookledge. So at some point I need to look and say, am I looking to become a speaker in this field, or do I want to just focus on the weddings? And I had a long conversation with my team because it does open opportunities for this space. It does open opportunities for me personally, but is that the direction I want to go? And it's not. My goal is in 10 years that I retire and I'm sitting on a beach somewhere. So if that is my goal, I want to travel the world, then I need to focus on making this place the absolute best it could be and providing a great source of income for my team. If the conferences and the other things aren't doing that, then I need to let those go and really focus on the goal and the dream, basically. Yeah.
Hey there, thanks so much for watching or listening. I wanted to take a moment and share about Common Sense Events. Common Sense Events is my company that professionally manages and operates venues all across the United States, and we're looking to work with a couple more venues this year. If you own a venue in Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, we are looking to work with you. Our company comes in and takes care of the marketing, the sales, the operations. We hire all of the employees, we manage all the employees, and primarily our agreements are based off of revenue share models. So it's a very affordable way to have your venue professionally managed. And this is especially good if you're thinking about retiring, selling your venue, but maybe you don't want to sell the land, or you're looking for another management option than you currently have in place. If you're interested in this, please reach out by email at venues@cseventservices.com, or you can also click the link in the description of this video or podcast. We'd love to hear from you and look forward to seeing if there's a way for us to serve you. Yeah, I love that. There's so much power in the word yes, right? But there's even more power in the word no, and knowing when to say no to opportunities. It's something that I'm actively learning, and I'm just like, that's super inspiring to hear your kind of dedicated focus towards what you are deciding you're going to be good at and you're going to succeed in. And I see that paying off.
Yeah, it's hard to say no. And we've even had to say no to couples, like people who wanted to book, and we're like, you really aren't like the couple that wants to be here. You might love that it's a wedding weekend, but you don't really want to get married under the trees. So we've said no to couples. One, to protect our sanity of me and the team. And also, like, we know if that couple was to book with us and it's really not what they want, they're going to hate it. And then they're going to leave us a bad review. And so we've had to say no. We've said no to 5 couples between this year and last year. And that's really hard to say no to that paycheck. But I want to save that spot for the couple that truly wants this space.
Yeah.
But it's okay to say no. We didn't say no in the beginning. We took everybody, and we've learned that it's just not worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you said no, how did you say no?
So I have learned, prior to being in the wedding world, I was a teacher, and there's a trick in the teaching world where we call it the sandwich, where you do a positive, the negative, and then a positive. And so I would tell the couple, look, we really liked you, and we want to make sure that you have the absolute best wedding. You are saying that you're looking for these things. We don't have those things for you. And I feel that if we don't have those things for you, that you're not going to love it at the end of the day. And we want to make sure you have the wedding you have. Here are some other places that might be a great fit for you. And we left it at that. So it wasn't that we don't want them. We want you. We think you're great. We just aren't able to do what it is that you want. And we don't want you to have a bad wedding. And so that's how we presented it. And the couples, like a lot of them they reached back out and they're like, we found this place. Thank you. We loved it. So it was okay. I just knew that if they were to stay here, they were going to hate it. There's people who love nature. We call them Like there's people who love to like take a walk in the park and watch the ducks. And then there's the people who love to like go backpacking and like tent in the woods. Our place is more for the people who like to go backpacking and tent in the woods. So you've got to be okay with there's going to be a chipmunk or squirrel that might run across your reception, or it might rain, or there might be a bug. You've got to be okay with those things. So we definitely listen very closely when they're telling us like what kind of nature they like.
Awesome. Yeah. 2 points for your positivity sandwich. I love that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like also the way that you said it, because it positioned you as a consultant rather than just a salesperson at a venue. You're basically saying, hey, I was actively listening to everything that you said. And what I heard was there were a couple of things where we weren't a perfect fit. And so because of that, I really want you to have the best experience. Boom, let's go somewhere else. That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yep.
So this leads us to the conversation around the team, because you said you wanted in 10 years to be on a beach somewhere. You want to be traveling. You also talked about saying no to some of these opportunities that I know you would have added value to, right? Like I could just imagine you up on a stage talking about some of this stuff. And I don't know if that's the direction that you want to go, but realistically, if your venue did not require your time, right, you would be able to do that. And even at the 10-year mark, when you are at that beach, there's totally a world where your team is running it and you're checking in from time to time, but it's happening. So help me. And I also heard you say earlier on, you wanted to do everything yourself. You said, let the baker bake the cake. Mm-hmm. Tell me some of the lessons that you've learned with your team, kind of dig into that SOPs and stuff more, because I love that. And then also what are your plans kind of for the future and for your future continued success?
Yeah. So I think the teacher in me loves the idea of doing the conferences and those types of things. And I'm not saying no to that forever. I'm saying no to it for right now. The thing that's unique about Brookledge is the short-term rental world and the wedding world, they're trying to merge. I don't know if wedding venues know that, but there's a huge group of people who are renting Airbnbs to, short-term rentals to have these like micro weddings. And so a lot of the people that are in the short-term rental world are kind of reaching out to me because I do both. And so that's kind of how I'm ending up in that space. But my team, because I have both short-term rentals and the wedding venue, I split my team in half. And so one team focuses just on the cabins and the turnovers, keeping them clean, seeing, the inventory, seeing what the couples need. I have a second half of my team that just focuses on the events, all events. What I did is I assigned one person for short-term rentals. She's my go-to person. And I assigned one person to my wedding stuff. My short-term rental person, she is in charge of all of the staff that's going to be doing the cleanings. We then also saw that the event space, that they need an assistant. We needed the social media piece. We needed the networking piece. So they are each in charge. So I just communicate with the two of them. They are then in charge of everybody that is assisting us. What we decided was we basically made a triangle. So it's me, my two girls. We meet every single week and we talk about what the wedding side needs and what the short-term rental side needs. And they come up with the ways to solve the problem. So one of the things that the wedding side said was once the wedding is done at 11, the pavilion space and the bathrooms are a big mess in the parking lot. Those technically are not part of the short-term rental side because they're just doing the cabins. So they came up with a plan of how to work together to take care of those spaces. Because of our setup, we cannot leave food or anything outside because it'll attract bears and moose and things like that. So we have to have the space cleaned at the end. So we talked about creating two systems. And so we use technology for the short-term rentals, technology for the wedding stuff. And then they created documents where if it has to merge, so the cleaning staff for the short-term rentals, we hired an extra person just that manages the cleaning for the wedding things. But they all work together to make that happen. And we created a big barn inventory system. And we split that as well. So we have the wedding stuff on one side and the short-term rental, and then there's a spot in the middle where it overlaps. So we had to keep everything separated, but they work together. I don't know if this all makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. It sounds like you have, there's department heads.
Yes.
And then so we call it a win meeting. So we have a win meeting, a what's important now meeting. And it's the people who are in charge of the different departments. Yes. And it's so that's that central meeting. And then I also heard you say you have things that are shared on both sides, but there's also, this is dedicated here and locked in here. This is dedicated and locked in here. And then the stuff that's shared is kind of in the middle, and there's systems and processes around how we share and what we share. It sounded like resources like paper towels and stuff like that, as well as the time of the team members. Is that accurate?
Yes. And we discovered that a short-term rental guest is going to need something different than a bride. And what we did is created Google Docs have been super helpful for us. We created like a folder and we kind of put those things together. And by having everything in writing, we also got to see what was overlapping. So we noticed that the couples liked certain types of linens or things like that, but that we saw that the guests were also wanting to benefit from those, whether they were having a birthday party or something simple along those lines. So we were looking to see by writing everything down what was overlapping. And we also were seeing that some of us were doing, like I was doing something that they were also doing. And we're like, wait a second, why are the three of us all doing this? Why are the three of us all answering emails for the couples when that should just be one person? So we went through and streamlined our roles and kind of made things by putting it down in writing. We could kind of see what we wanted. And we also took there's a book, I'm forgetting the name of it. It'll come to me. I'll send it to you. But we wrote down what it is we love about our job, what we have to do, and what we wish somebody else would do. And by us, what'd you say?
It's who, not how?
No, it wasn't that. It was like genius something. I'll find it.
Is it anything to do with the EOS system?
Not that I can think of. Well, and we wrote these categories down, and we saw that. I know you're thinking about it now too.
It's literally, I have the book.
Oh wait, hold on. I have it saved on my phone. But we were talking. Like it's gonna come to me. I just finished reading it the other day. But we saw that there was things that I disliked doing, but yet one of my other team members loved it. And so then we just kind of switched it. Let me see if I have it.
So
The Great CEO Within. Nope, that's not it. The 6 Types of Working Genius.
Yeah, 6 Types of Working Genius. Patrick Lencioni, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so we got to see, like, I love doing the social media stuff. My girls don't like that. So I'm going to take that on during the wedding day. And so we just kind of look to see what they love. My property manager of the short-term stuff, she prefers the back-end things. Like, she's like, she goes, I love setting up the tables. My other girl, she doesn't love that. So they got to kind of see where their geniuses were, what parts they loved. And so that's what we've been doing right now is just streamlining it. So 1, that we find things that we love, and 2, that we're making it life a little easier for each other.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. This is so cool, and there's so much that we can learn from you. And I'm sad that we're coming to the end of the podcast today, but we're gonna have to have you on in another couple of years to kind of see the growth there. And then one of these days we'll have you, and you'll be on a beach, and we'll do the podcast. That could be the final one, and
yes,
that's awesome. Well, Helen, thank you again. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us, and just like everything that you've learned. This is invaluable, and someone's gonna listen to this and really take a lot of value from it. So if people want to just reach out to you, independently of this and pick your brain or whatever, what's the best way to reach out to you, or even for weddings or events?
Yeah. So I'm the one that manages our social media. Someday I'm going to pass that on, but right now I'm taking it on. And it's Brookledge NY across the board is the best way to reach, just message me on Instagram or through Facebook. And I'll be happy to answer questions. I actually did that in the very beginning. You had, I'm going to shout out Emerson Fields. I reached out. She was like, yes, just message me. And I did. I messaged her, and she hopped on a video chat with me, and she shared some of the things that she did. And I still do some of those things today in my space. So shout out to her. I appreciated her taking that time out. And I'd be happy to do that for anybody who's kind of in this type of setup.
That's awesome. I love that. So loved hearing that. That makes me so happy. That's really cool. I love it. All right. Well, we got a wrap for today, but Helen, it's been such a pleasure having you back on. Congratulations on your success and how you're growing. And I'm just so looking forward to what the future has in store for you as you continue to grow.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Pardon the interruption, I wanted to take a moment and share with you about WEVA. WEVA stands for Wedding and Event Venue Association, and it is a professional association custom built for venue owners and operators. We felt like there was a lack of resources, community, education, and networking available specifically for our industry, and so we recently started this association, and it's been growing by the day. We would love to extend an invite to you, so please click the link in the description or wherever you're watching this video, and we would love to welcome you into the community.